Alright, well, I'd like to show you a new product that I'll have coming up in my online store pretty soon. And that new product is these header pins. Now, these aren't your typical gold finish header pins. If I get a little closer here, you might be able to see that these actually have round pins instead of square pins. And the round pins on these here are of a smaller diameter. Now the advantage there really depends on your application. You know, I'm a huge fan of the square header pins. I actually carry a version on my online store, also gold finished. I also use them in my dual output breadboard power supplies. Those are what power the rails on a solderless breadboard here. Now the square ones, you know, they are a bit of a tight fit on your standard breadboard. For something like a power supply that you're going to leave in there most of the time, not a big deal. It's actually a good thing, so the power supply isn't falling out of the breadboard when you don't expect it to. But when it comes to something like a breakout board, say, the square pins can actually make it a little bit too difficult to press into and then remove out of your breadboard. You know, as an example, I actually have one of my accelerometer breakout boards here, which I did use the square pins on back before I had the round ones. And again, you know, for the time being, it worked okay, but they are a bit of a pain to insert into the breadboard, and eventually it will wear out those contacts. So that's where these little round pins come into play. Now, the big advantage here is that once these are inserted into the breadboard, you know, they're about the same diameter as a typical wire you might use at a breadboard, so when you're done, you should be able to pull out your breakout board pretty easily. So I figured we'd run a quick little test here. I have a brand new one of my little accelerometer breakout boards, and I went ahead and I broke away a couple of the actual rounded header pins from another piece that I had, and I'm going to go ahead and solder them on. I'm going to go in there nice and easy. Let's see, I think I want that there. And I think I'm going to want this one right about there. Alright. I'll put that board right on top. You can see the pins, because they're so much smaller than the rectangular ones, your breakout board with the headers in there, it's not going to fit snug against the pins, which isn't a bad thing. You just want to hold it down when you solder the first pin on there. Got my soldering iron all warmed up and ready to go over here in the background. So let's go. Let's solder this edge pin first. And I'm not going to fully solder that pin. I'm going to just use enough to get it stuck there. And then I'll go ahead and tack down this corner a little bit better here. Opposite corner, same deal. Not fully soldering it down so I can hold it down. Alright, so now that thing's already solid. So now I'll go ahead and kind of alternate corners and finish soldering the rest. Got one side. Usually I like to use just a little bit of solder at first. Let the solder melt, make contact. The flux kind of cleans up the contact for you. And then I go back with a little bit of extra solder to finish it up. I'm going to go back over that first pin that I started to solder before. Finish that up. That's good. Go back over this pin over here. I always want to make sure to use just enough heat so we don't end up with a cold solder joint. Basically, don't rush. A little solder, wait for it to melt nice. Going with the rest of it. And our last pin here. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Clean off my iron a little bit. Excellent. Alright, so we'll let that cool a little bit here. Alright, so again, here is, I'll put it in the background, the square pin version. And we'll go ahead and, wow, get that in there. Careful not to pierce my own skin with that one. Alright, so that's in. And we have the new rounded pin version over here in the foreground. Now it looks like on the breadboard, if you could see that in the video, the round pin one actually sits up a little bit higher because the pins themselves, when I'm considering the top side, have a little bit of a machined portion that's above the plastic that holds the pins together. So that gives you a little bit more height off the top of the breadboard. Actually might be kind of convenient. Other than that, they look pretty similar. Now the big moment of truth. Wow, that's pretty cool. That comes out nice and easy. Anywhere I want in the breadboard, go ahead. Just like that. Wow. Very cool. No, they're not super loose. It's not like it's going to just fall out. You know, it still takes a little bit of force, but you know, the removal is nice and simple. Whereas the old square pin ones, well, let's just say this may have a permanent place in my breadboard. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Well, comparatively, I will definitely say I like the thinner pins. That is pretty cool. Alright, well, you should be able to find these in my store coming up pretty soon. And we'll catch you again soon. Alright, thanks for watching.